everything is made up and everything sucks. That we always have to follow the money to figure out why a candidate is doing what they're doing or why the elected official is doing what they're doing.
Hello, welcome to RVA Magazine. My name is Sophia Feliciano, and I am joined by Salaam Bhatti, who is running for Congress in Virginia's 1st District. His campaign is based on the standard that the government could and should care for the people that it represents. We're having a conversation about politics, but more so it is a conversation about values and the values of the Virginians today. So good morning, Salaam. How are you doing today?
Sophia, I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day to be with you. Sophia, how are you?
I'm doing great too. And how are you feeling as the redistricting is coming to a close tomorrow?
I'm very excited about what's to come. Whether or not it passes, we have an opportunity to put candidates in office who care about the people and who are not controlled by a donor class.
Do you agree with how the redistricting is being done?
Yes, and I say that with a weighted breath because it doesn't exist in a vacuum. You know, Virginia's not doing this because we want to. Virginia's doing this because we have to. It's what Trump initiated with Texas and the other red states. And so with Trump, taking +5 Republican seats and -5 Democratic seats from Texas congressional members, we saw that ripple effect of the red states and then the blue states responding in kind, because we can't have Trump steal, perhaps asterisk, another election, especially at a time where he is going full fascist. And so if we lose the House this year, then I do believe we've lost democracy.
Do you believe that it will be temporary if it does go through?
I believe it will be temporary because it always has been temporary. Every 10 years when we do the census, then we redraw the lines. So 2030, when we have the next census, 2032, we'll have new lines.
Okay.
But the beauty here is that the opportunity we have is that should Democrats win the House and the Senate and the presidency for 2028, then we'll have the ability to ban gerrymandering forever. And that's something that's not without precedent, because, Sophia, in 2019, we had the For the People Act, where Democrats in the House, when Democrats had the majority, they passed the ban of gerrymandering. It died in the Senate because of Republicans. So when it comes to, Republicans in Virginia, especially the Congress members saying, hey, this is wrong and we need to do something about it, well, yeah, you have the majority in the House and the Senate, and you have the White House. You could literally draft a bill right now banning gerrymandering and having the president sign it, if you truly believe that.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then the only standard you have is a double standard.
Cuts to anti-hunger programs are what pushed you to run for office. What was the turning point where frustration turned into action for you?
Yeah, I'm a child of immigrants. I grew up low income, relying on programs like WIC, free school meals, used those programs to get by. And then I became a public interest lawyer, and I worked at the Virginia Poverty Law Center, where we helped expand those programs. It was really refreshing and cathartic to be able to give back to the people. And then, went to the Food Research and Action Center, where we fought the big ugly bill. We fought a Republican farm bill that was seeking to make even more cuts. So the thing is, I realize is all of these elected officials who are owned by corporate interests are not acting in the people's interests. You'll never have common sense legislation that's going to help the people when campaign finance is the way it is. So I figured, with my personal and professional experience and the expertise that I have, now's the time to stop writing papers and start writing laws.
Yeah, do you think that your background as a public interest lawyer, knowing the laws in a deeper way, gives you a certain type of advantage over others?
Yeah, one of the things we were able to do in Virginia in 2020 was something that nobody else has done in the country, which was unite Republicans and Democrats in the state assembly to unanimously vote to expand a welfare program. So in 2020, we expanded SNAP for 25,000 families. And we did this in a way that others typically don't do, because when we have a coalition, it's typically just nonprofits and anti-poverty folks and all the people with good hearts. But the hearts don't have the power, unfortunately, in the political system that we have. So I looked at what my predecessors had tried, and I was like, well, we can't do the same thing and expect different results, right?
Yeah.
That's the definition of insanity. So what I did is I looked at the people who have the power, and by people I mean not people, the corporations.
Yeah.
And I looked at the subcommittee where this bill originates to expand SNAP. And I looked at who are the corporate donors to the elected officials on that subcommittee. And I brought those donors into our coalition. So we ended up getting a health insurance company. We got a big box grocery store in there as well. And so when the elected officials saw, the money is in here now too, then the dominoes fell.
Interesting.
So that's what sets me apart from all the other candidates in this race, or really in any other race across the country, that I've gotten results.
What does making the government work for the people who need it most look like in actual practice to you?
Oh,
like
man.
expanding those SNAP benefits?
Dude, there's a great clause in the Constitution that tells Congress what its job is. It's the General Welfare Clause. It says that Congress's job is to provide for the general welfare. And general welfare is so important to the framers that they even mention it in the preamble to, promote the general welfare. So when I see general welfare, I see basic needs. Just take care of everybody's basic needs. Housing, food, education, and then let people succeed however they want. Thomas Jefferson said it a great way when he was talking about religion, but he says, if it doesn't pick my pocket or break my leg, then why should I care?
Yeah.
Right? So there's so many Republicans who are like, oh, we're gonna, ban trans people from doing this, or we don't want black people doing this, or we don't want married women voting.
Yeah.
Like, this is stupid. All right, this is a waste of time. All right, and it's horrific injustices abound. We don't have time for that. We have to claw back on all that. We have to undo all that harm, but we have to be able to move forward as well. And so what basic needs looks like is, as an expert in the poverty program space, it doesn't mean I'm their advocate. It doesn't mean I'm a cheerleader for them. What I know about them is I know how they can work better. There's a lot of inefficiencies in them. There's a lot of deliberate eligibility standards that don't jive with each other. But when you're in poverty, you need all of them.
Yeah.
But you can't be eligible for all of them because one is 130% of poverty, it's 180, so it's stupid. It's really messed up. What we can do is we have an opportunity to consolidate the welfare programs into some sort of guaranteed income. So it's more of we have Medicare for all, and we have a guaranteed income, and then people are able to focus on their lives instead of having to go from different public agency office to different public agency office. You go from SNAP office to WIC, from WIC to Medicaid, from Medicaid to TANF, from TANF to Section 8. That's a waste of time. It's a waste of government resources. It's a waste of taxpayer money. So we can actually make it a lot better.
And can you give me examples of those eligibility requirements that kind of don't line up for some of the same things that people in poverty may need?
Yeah, so TANF is the temporary assistance for needy families. It's more of a cash assistance program. The eligibility is far below the poverty line. So very few people are eligible for this program. And the unfortunate thing with this program is it's something called a block grant program. So the amount of money it received from 1996 Welfare Reform Act hasn't changed. It's in fact, so it's lost value over the decades. And as a block grant, the federal government just gives the money to the state. The state can do whatever they want with it. Some states allow Brett Favre to take millions from it to build a volleyball court.
Brett Favre? Who's that?
Brett Favre. He's a former Green Bay Packer quarterback who swindled the TANF program in Louisiana, where it's the poorest state in the country, right? So it was really bad. So there's really very it doesn't have guardrails. That's a program for people far below the poverty line. But then you have SNAP, which in Virginia you can be 200% of the federal poverty level and possibly be eligible for it. For free school meals, I believe it's about 180. I want to say 180%. But then again, also, if you're receiving SNAP, then you automatically qualify for free school meals. There was a recent article that came out that said, for a family of four, the federal poverty level is now $130,000.
You seem very there was a lot of background that helps you with your campaign trail that makes you more qualified and more prepared than other candidates. But was there anything that surprised you during this campaign trail that maybe you weren't expecting?
Call time.
Call time? What's that?
Call time is dialing for dollars. So what you do as a candidate, and this is something that really never makes it to the light of day, is how you have to spend at least 4 or 5 hours, or as the kids would say 6, 7 hours a day, calling donors for money. And it's not just about calling people in the district for money, but calling people not even in the state, but the whole country for money. And it's a waste of time because that's 4 or 5 hours that I want to be talking to voters. I'd rather spend that time talking with voters. The people who are donating to our campaign are donating for me to win.
Yeah.
And me calling people out of state, even out of district, is not helping us win.
Yeah.
So that's just a part of the problem, which is why campaign finance reform is one of our priorities. We don't have elected officials fighting for the people because they're fighting for those who are donating to the campaigns. We see that in the incumbent I'm challenging, where he's allowing the war in Iran to happen and the injustices and the genocide in Gaza to continue, because that's benefiting the donor class that donates to him. So these are the things we have to realize, that we always have to follow the money to figure out why a candidate is doing what they're doing, or why the elected official is doing what they're doing.
What does the candidate finance reform actually look like?
Campaign finance reform. So the big goal is to undo Citizens United. That was a Supreme Court case in like 2010, which essentially said that corporations are people and that they can pretty much put unlimited money into campaigns. And before 2010, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Right. We used to have pretty decent elections and pretty decent campaigns. But this became like the wild, wild west, kind of like what Virginia politics has. Now, sure, there is still a cap for federal candidates at $3,500 per person per donor. And in Virginia, there is no cap. But yeah, that's what it would look like. It would look like corporate PACs coming out of it, the foreign interests like AIPAC coming out of it, shutting down these PACs. And they're just fueling, pumping money into the system. And then also putting in some sort of public match. So there's some municipalities, cities, counties around the country. New York City is one of them. Maryland has it. I think LA has it, where for every dollar that a constituent puts in to your campaign, then there can be a state match, $7, $5 or something. So that way now the citizens have a buy-in as to, hey, I can actually help support this candidate, and it can actually go a lot further than it would before.
Okay.
And then the candidate is on the hook now to be reaching out to the people instead of the corporations.
Yes. What stood out to me about your campaign is that it felt very grounded in kindness and love, and it was so refreshing and moving to hear you speak during the salon. And I thought to myself, like, wow, I've never feel like I've heard a candidate talk like that. Where does that sense of kindness in your politics come from?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for seeing that. I learned English by watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And Mr. Rogers spoke an English of love and wonder and curiosity and care. So when you have a foundation like that, it's hard to grow detached from it. And so oftentimes I'm like, would Mr. Rogers be proud of what I'm doing, or would he be happy? Or what can we do to make Mr. Rogers happy? And also, I'm a man of faith. And there are, of course, divine teachings about the divine in all faiths, but there's also the universal teaching in every faith of loving your neighbor. And love isn't just saying hi or not knowing their name and saying hi, but actually love like your family.
Yes.
Right? Like knowing what they're going through. Like, are they struggling? Do they have food in their bellies when they're going to bed? Or are you going to bed with a full stomach and they're going to bed hungry? Like, that's not love. We got to be able to build community.
Yeah.
And one of the things for me is that oftentimes I've seen elected officials and candidates talk about how we need justice.
Yes.
And justice is it for them. Like, that's the end of the road. For me, justice is the floor. We need to rise above justice and get to that love of that kindness for people and treat them like families. So, for example, what does that look like? A lot of people are like, well, we need equal rights for LGBTQ folks or black and brown folks when they're discriminated against at their job. Like, if they're fired or if they don't get the job, they need justice. Well, it takes a long time for justice, and it costs a lot of money to hire a lawyer. And if you're applying for a job, it's because you need money.
Yeah. So
you don't have the money to hire a lawyer, and you don't have the time to go through the court process because you need a job. So justice will never happen. Right? Let's just be clear about that. So how do we get to the next step, though, right? The next step of justice is something like a guaranteed income, right? Affordability is the crisis of our time, and going through all the poverty programs is really hard. So let's make it as efficient as possible for people to be able to meet their basic needs and then succeed however they need to. But the beauty really comes when, like, a neighborhood, like in this park area that we are, like, comes together and just has like a picnic. Or when some guy's giving out free tiramisu in downtown, right? Like, these are the things that people need to step up and do. And that's why when we one of our campaign slogans is, we are the ones we've been waiting for, right? So don't wait for the federal government to do it. Don't wait for a local government to do it. You do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also goes into my next question of what do you think causes the average American today to lose their sense of kindness for one another and become less connected to the people around them? Do you think that it's personality based or just something about the society that we're surrounded by?
I was on our podcast. We were talking with Professor both Jenny Pribble, and so she's like, "Yeah, we've backslid into authoritarianism." So I said to her, like, "What's the solution? How do we resolve this?" And she said, "The only thing that's ever worked is community." We've lost community because when people come home from work, they go into the garage and they stay in their house.
Yeah.
Right? We're done. We've got Netflix, we've got Hulu, we've got YouTube, we've got doom scrolling, we've got all of these things that's detached us from loving our neighbors. And now we're in keeping up with the Joneses mentality, right? So total in conflict with each other, where we're competing with our neighbors instead of loving them. So that's why we have backslid into authoritarianism. It's easy to get lost in the hopelessness.
Yeah.
But that's what they want us to do, right? Yeah, I like to think about Lord of the Rings. And in Lord of the Rings, when they set out from the Shire for this journey, even when they set out from Rivendell, like, things were okay. Even though the journey was still the same, things were okay in the start. But the closer they got to Mordor, the harder things got. So similarly, when we set out in July with our campaign, things were okay. And as the closer we're getting to Election Day, they're getting worse and worse and worse. So what we're seeing right now is not even the worst of it. So we cannot get lost in the helplessness and the hopelessness of the individual, of the isolation, because that's what they want us to do. And that's what I say to folks. I say, listen, the sun is setting on America right now. And in the darkness and the loneliness of the night, as we wonder who is going to come save us, it's us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And what I'm waiting for the listener to do is to join us on this journey as we work and struggle towards that next sunrise to make this new America.
Beautiful. Candidates are often forced to simplify complex issues, which can create a concern around transparency and honesty in messaging. Do you find a problem with that, or do you believe that maybe it's the voters' responsibility to educate themselves and not rely on their candidates and politicians to tell them everything?
Yeah, you can't rely on candidates and politicians to tell you everything, because if you did, then you wouldn't have known that Israel attacked Lebanon 100 times in 10 minutes, right? And so you have to do your own research. You know, democracy is a participatory sport, right? You can't just rely on zingers and tweets and this and that to be informed. And especially cannot rely on AI because it's all hallucinations and psychosis. So that's what we have to do. We have to reach out. We have to utilize our public libraries, one of our greatest, that's the greatest data center we have. And
I guess I feel a lot of people may be similar to me in that every issue is kind of a complex issue when it comes to what we're talking about. So I know that go to the public library and read, but where do you give somebody a starting point that, like, doesn't really know where to start?
RVA Mag is a great place to start. Yeah, read your local periodicals. Local journalism is unfortunately dying, and it's not dying, it's being killed deliberately. We've got private ventures coming in and just buying it out and shutting it down. One of the great recent examples is the Roanoke Rambler, I think it was called. And the Roanoke Rambler had done this great expose on the data centers that were coming into their area. And all of a sudden, the owner goes to New York City and he sells it to a private equity bro. And guess what? The guy who bought the Roanoke Rambler is also on the Economic Development Committee for Roanoke, who has a vested interest in the data center coming in. And they shut down the Roanoke Rambler. They fired the journalists, and so job done. And so that's why we really need to pay attention to our local zines, making sure that we are contributing to them, and making sure those journalists are able to report what's going on locally. Because, hey, all politics is local.
The audience that I'm a part of, this younger audience, is always felt like it is the least talked to when it comes to politics and campaigning. Is there any part of your campaign, a message that you specifically would like the younger audience to hear?
Come join our team.
Yeah.
We've got so many young volunteers. We've got almost 200 volunteers total.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm not satisfied. We're going for 500 at least. So I encourage young people, like, hey, you guys are ready for change, and I'm here ready to make it with you. I didn't become a lawyer to make dollars. I became a lawyer to make change. And that's what we're going to do together. I've joined high schoolers in their protest against ICE, and that angered one of my neighbors who's a Republican. He's from Poland, and he said, I came here legally. Well, you came here at a very different time, sir. And people need to understand that life decades ago has vastly changed. And yet our immigration has not changed. So we need comprehensive immigration reform, which includes abolishing ICE. We're not just here to use you as volunteers, but I want to hear from you. Like, what are your concerns? And it's really unfortunate. I was really upset when the high schoolers were protesting ICE. You shouldn't be worried about your friends being kidnapped and murdered. You should be worried about SATs and college.
All right, well, thank you so much. Where can people find more information on how to volunteer and more about you and your campaign?
We're very active on social media, especially Instagram, Facebook, at Salaam Bhatti VA, so SALAAM So it's funny when you put the VA at the end, people are like, "Is your last name Bativa?" No, it's VA for Virginia. So find us there. And what we do every week is we publish our weekly agenda. So, and that's pinned. And it's like, hey, find me. I'm somewhere mostly every day. Like, we do more in 1 week than most candidates have done all campaign. This past Saturday, we did 6 events in 1 day. All right, so it's just like we are out there. We want to be with the people. We want to meet them and have opportunities for them to, like, have me be accessible.
Yes.
When we have coffee with the candidate every Saturday in a local coffee shop in different parts of the district. So people travel from over an hour to come see me. And that really distresses me.
Why?
Because people shouldn't have to do that to meet a candidate. And this actually speaks to something even more nuanced. And it kind of ties back, coming full circle to redistricting. The Republicans keep saying, this is not fair. I don't want somebody in Fairfax or Richmond representing me.
Yeah.
But there's never, ever going to be a way in the current construct of how the lines are made for there to be fairness and representation. Do you want to know why, Sophia?
Yes.
So in 1929, Congress passed a law that capped the House at 435 members.
Okay.
So ever since you were growing up, ever since before you were born, ever since before your parents were born, it's always been 435 representatives. If you've ever wondered why, it's because of that law. A law that's almost 100 years old. So back in the day, it used to be 1 representative for 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people are in my district?
No.
Take a guess.
30,000?
30,000?
Yeah.
800,000.
Oh.
800,000. That's not fair to the people.
Yeah.
You will never get fair representation with the current map. So one of our ideas within campaign finance reform is uncapping the House. So bring in more representatives. And that's one way to dilute how much money is being put into the system, because we understand also that, look at the timeline, we won't be able to repeal Citizens United, that Supreme Court case, because of the current makeup of the Supreme Court. It's conservative leaning. So we tried, if we introduced a law and it passed, corporations would bring it up to the Supreme Court and it would fail.
Yeah, wow.
For the Democrats, or for the people. So what we can do, we can uncap the House. We can just repeal that law and actually have more proportionate representation in this country. And that would dilute the amount of money that comes into it.
How much do you think the House would grow by?
Oh, man. It depends which math you use. So one of the things I'm looking into is called the Wyoming rule. The Wyoming rule says you look at the state with the lowest population, and that state gets 1 representative. So Wyoming has like 570,000 people. And then for every 570,000 people you have in your state, you get 1 representative. So that would grow Congress by a couple hundred, I believe, if the math adds up. But yeah.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the great thing about Congress. The thing about society right now is everything is made up and everything sucks. There's some comedian who said that, and I vibe with that. So Congress is the place where we can make things up. We can create new institutions. We can tear down old institutions that aren't working and learn from what works around the world and implement that here. Over 80 nations have figured out universal health care.
Yeah.
We can learn from them. And it's never going to be perfect. Nothing man-made is ever perfect. But we can always do better. They figured it out. Why can't we? So every year, they're increasing the prices. So we have to pay more in our premiums. And our employers have to pay more as well. And when we had the healthcare subsidies, we would have to pay more because those would go up as a percentage. So they're getting more and we're paying more in taxes. And then we would be denied care, so they'd profit from that.
Yes.
If they own the means of the prescription drugs, they're making money from that. So that's how they're making money. So in so many different ways from us. That's why so many of us are making more money than our parents ever did, and we're still struggling to get by. We are being sucked dry from this donor class, and enough is enough.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an amazing interview. You want to say one more time where you can find him?
You can find me at Salaam Bhatti VA, or you can even visit us online at salamforva.com.
And what was it? We are the one that we need?
We are the ones we've been waiting for. And I'm waiting for you to join us on this journey to work towards that new sunrise.